All right. Welcome one, welcome all. My name is Kris-Karz, and today we're gonna be breaking down the mix for one of my singles called Safe With Me. If you're new to my page, like you just happened to stumble upon it, I'm a recording artist and producer. Before we dive super deeply into anything, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to my channel. For many artists like myself, the mixing process has always been kinda somewhat complicated. The purpose of this video today is to demystify the concept of mixing, show you how simple it actually is. Hopefully I can point you to the right direction and recommend some templates. I'm gonna show you how I mix my music, and hopefully you can use that to mix your own music. Essentially what this is, it's a mix by an artist for other artists. So without further ado, let's see if we can dive right into it. Let's take a look at this mix here. I made and produced this entire song in Ableton. So this is more or less how I set up my session. I try to usually have mine color coded. The first thing you have to make sure you do, you organize everything, you know what I'm saying? So anything that can create a melody, I usually personally color code mine in some kind of blue. The gray ones are inactive. Vocals, I typically color code it in blue, but you can use whichever color scheme that make more sense for you or what you perceive as most organized. But that's how I keep organized, because before you start any mix, you have to make sure you're super organized. You're just gonna be all over the place, you feel me? So as an artist, you want to make your mix as easy and seamless as possible. So first one is to organize. Now, once you have everything organized, let's tap into the vocals. So what I personally do, let's take, for instance, this intro right here. Let's listen to it.
You're confidential, cause you know where we going, and you know that you're safe with me.
All right, so what I try to do first, I try to clean up each audio file. So if you notice, these audios kind of chop up because whatever noise is in between me actually making the sound that I want to be captured, I just take it off. You can do that a couple of ways. You can use a gate, but I personally like to just cut it out of it. Once I remove the undesirables, like the breaths I don't want, the background noise, whatever, I go in, and this is super key, and this is something that I learned only recently from watching YouTube videos. You have to, what them call, gain stage it. Or you don't have to, but I gain stage it. And I'll tell you why that's important in a second. So essentially, I go in and I listen. So let's see. These vocals right here. I listen to it and I gain stage to make sure, say, all of these vocals they're on the same volume. Everything volume-wise should be the exact same. And the reason why this is important, once you send it to the vocal bus, it make the compression way easier, and it make the listener can hear the level of the vocal evenly all the way through. So your vocal is gonna have a better chance of cutting through the mix all the way through. So that's a key. That's a big thing that I just only learned recently. So there's that. So I go through and I gain stage every single vocal. That takes some time, but trust me, you won't regret it. So go in, cut out the undesirable breaths that you don't want, you know, have a nice listen to the whole mix.
Cause you know where we going, and you know that you're safe with me. Got a big man in love with everything that you're doing.
Again, you want to do that for the whole vocal. Make sure that all the volume for all your recordings are the exact same. So if there's a piece that really quiet, maybe you lean out your performance, you lean away from the mic a little bit, or you lean into it too much, you can turn up, turn down to make sure everything is even. So that right there, honestly, if you have a good recording and you gain stage and clean it up, That is, I want to say more than 30% of a mix right there, in my personal opinion. Maybe even more, because that's the hardest part of the mix, right there, so, right? So, after we gain stage all the vocals, right? Let's tap into the actual dynamic processing here. The first thing, this is my vocal chain, by the way. I start off with a gate. All right, technically I don't really need this gate right now since I cleaned up the mix so much. So I can even mute this if I want to, but it's not really creating much damage, so I'm gonna leave it right there for now. But if you clean up your mix properly enough, you really don't need a gate. This is what you do need, however. So this is a de-esser. So the first thing on my vocal chain almost every single time is a de-esser. So what it does, it takes off the harsh S sounds, the high frequency S and the T's. It kind of cuts it a little bit. So I don't think I have it deducting more than 3 to 6 dB, but let's see.
Your confidence showing, cause you know where we going. You know that you're safe with me.
So the max is maybe a little bit over 6 dB. I don't want to really go too crazy with the de-esser right here. I have another de-esser at the end of the chain, but I'll go take a look at it in a second. So that's something key that everybody should have, a de-esser. From there, I go into the dynamics. So I use, sorry, this is my favorite EQ here. This is the API EQ. So I just take out a little bit out of the 100 hertz range, just like 2 dB. Take out 2 dB out of like the 400 as well. And I add just a little bit of brightness here initially. So I don't go super crazy with the EQ either, right? The reason why is I want to save some room further along in the chain. This is really just cleanup. So I do my least drastic to most drastic. That's how my vocal chain is organized. So way down at the bottom of the chain right here is least drastic changes, and I can add some creative textures, which is a little bit more drastic towards the end of the chain. And let's see what else I have here. From after that, I have dynamics. So I have a little bit of RVox. This is my favorite compressor, especially for pop and rap and stuff like this. That is my favorite. Man, my cheer loud the hell. Some WD-40. But yeah, I do a little bit of deduction right here.
Got a big man in love with everything that you're doing. So you know that you're safe with me. Yeah. And if you want to.
So already, yo, you can see how well the vocals cut through the mix because of the gain staging, right? And if you gain staged well enough, right, you don't have to go crazy in the compression. So the maximum compression is -6. Sometimes it's, depending on the song, it's even less compression.
If you want to be my lover, baby, just hold on to me. Hey, hey, I'll give you meaning like.
So from there, I do a little bit more EQ, and then I add a little bit of exciter towards the end of the chain here. So this kind of adds some brightness to the vocals. So I recorded this song with a TF, a Telefunken TF47. So it's kind of like a U47 emulator. Again, I don't want to get super technical because I know this is for artists and not mixing engineers. But the 47 has a very dark and warm tone. So if you're like a silky R&B singer or somebody with a deep rugged voice, this might be complementary to your voice. That's as deep as I'm gonna get. But to add a little bit more brightness to the end of my chain, I add a little bit of exciter. Right? Towards the end, I add an exciter. And as a matter of fact, let me mute all these effects. Let me mute these effects and I'll show you what it is with and without. So let's start off by muting this gate. Boom, bang. Muting the gate right here. This is gonna be one of my longer videos, guys. I'm sorry. Very technical stuff here for the artists. Alright, so this is how the vocals sound dry.
You're confidential, cause you know where we going, and you know that you're safe with me. Got a big man in love with everything that you're doing.
Alright, let me take off the delays and the reverb as well. See how it sounds.
You're confidential, cause you know where we going, and you know that you're safe with me.
So this is the vocals without any effects, pretty much straight from the microphone. Very clean recording. This is my favorite mix, technical wise, that I've ever done personally. Like the balance of this mix is really good. And I've received, this is the only song that people reach out to me just for the mix. Be like, yo, this mix kind of sound really clean. So this is it.
You're confidential.
Let me add the de-esser.
You know where we going, and you know that you're safe with me.
Alright, let me add the EQ.
Got a big man in love with everything that you're doing, so you know that you're safe with me. And if you want to be my lover.
Alright, the compressor added some gain, so I didn't really trouble the gain on the compressor. I like.
You're confidential, cause you know where we going, and you know that you're safe with me. Got a big man in love with and if you want to be my lover, baby, just hold on to me.
So from there, I added another compressor, right? And this one is really optional. It's this compressor, I should say, is really just for texture. So I like the CLA2A when I want to slightly distort the vocals a little bit. So if you listen to it, this is it without it.
You're confidential, and you know that you're safe with me.
And this is it with it.
You're confidential, and you know that you're safe with me.
Because when you really crank the gain on this, it distorts it. And I actually like that distorted feel. The last thing I add to my vocal chain is another de-esser. So I just tie everything together with another de-esser towards the end here. And that's it. So let's hear everything together without the reverb.
You're confidential, cause you know where we going, and you know that you're safe with me. Got a big man in love with.
So it create like a bright, clear, clean, crispy sound. That's just something I personally really enjoy about this mix right here. So that's my vocal chain. If you want to implement anything, of course you can. And if you have any questions about this vocal chain, just leave a comment below. But this is more or less the vocal chain that has been working for me over the last couple of songs. I'm not gonna lie. As I progress more as an artist, I might add and remove some stuff, but I really love where this mix is sitting.
You're confidential, cause you know where we going, and you know that you're safe with me. Got a big man in love with everything that you're doing, so you know that you're safe with me.
Alright, so that's the vocal chain for the main vocals here. So I have some other things going on in the vocals. So certain things to add a little vibe, add a little movement to the vocal. Especially every 4 bars, you want to do something in the song to keep the listener engaged. At least that's how I've been taught. And that's the strategy that I still do. But you don't want to go too crazy. So I added some automation to the vocals here. Let me bring it down so you can see it a little bit clearer. So I automated some delays in the main vocals. So after each line, I want to say every 1 to 2 bars, I'll add a little delay. So listen up. So check it out. Cleaner look. So this is the automation I added here.
You're confidential, cause you know where we're going. You know that you're safe with me.
Right? Just some little things you can add to your mix subtly to give it a certain energy. You know what I'm saying? You don't want your mix to be super flat, super boring. You want it to be simple, but you don't want it to be boring. And there's a distinction there that you need to make. So there's that, and I added that a little bit through. I added also, I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to find some other automations that I did on the vocals. So let's take a look at the hook.
Safe with me.
So here I just added super wet reverb, 2 different kinds of reverb to this. This is where it gets kind of fun and technical. I wanted the hook to be really spacious, very spacey and vibey. So I added what we call some reverb throws to the hook. So what's happening is I increase the volume of the reverb towards the tail as the word is finishing up here. And that creates like a spacey effect. And it's a good way to transition from one phrase or from one bar or from one part of the song to another. So that's what you call a reverb throw.
Safe with me. Safe with me. Safe with me.
Yeah, man. So little subtle things like this you can add to your vocals to give it some character. You feel me? So I was really, really proud of how that came out here. And I did that for a couple of other reverbs and delays too. So you can add throws for different effects. It doesn't have to be a reverb or delay. You can automate the levels of whatever effects that you want to give your vocal just that little oomph, you know what I mean? To let it stand out in the mix a little bit. So that is the hook right there. Let's see what else we have. I had some. So just the doubles. I had a track. I didn't really automate these, but I had a track where I repeated, where I just copied and pasted some doubles, you know what I mean? What did I have on this? I have like the waves tune to keep it in tune. I have a flanger on these Adlibs, and I cut off the low and some of the high, and I have it panned. I have the panning going on, and I have a stereo imager to make it really wide. So this is what it sounds like right here. Super cool. That's what I did on the Adlibs. I don't have a whole heap of Adlibs. I don't have a whole heap of Adlibs on this song, but for the ones that I have, that's what I did. Let's see. What's this right here?
Hold on to me.
Yeah, it's the same shit, right? I have a little flanger effect going on.
My lover, baby, just hold on to me.
Just something to thicken the ending of the lines, you know what I mean? So personally, I don't like doubling every single line in the song. I just like to emphasize certain words or certain melodies, and I intentionally made this wider. I use like the Valhalla space modulator to make it wider. I use a flanger, and I have Autotune on this channel as well. Okay, so what else do I have here? That's the vast majority of the vocals. Of course, I have some backgrounds where I did some more dub.
You know that you're safe with me.
This is how I do my doubles here. I separate the background vocals, the auxiliary tracks for the background vocals. I kept them on their own group instead of sending them to the main lead, because I want these vocals to have a different characteristics from the main lead. So let's see what they sound like and see what we did here. Yeah, I basically chopped it up to make it really tight. All right, so let's break it down. I use Wave Tuner on all the individual tracks in the background vocals. I use Wave Tuner, right? I wonder if there's a way to take off this. I don't really need. There you go. I don't really need that right there. So yes, I use Wave Tuner to tune all the individual tracks here. And that's the only thing I did on the tracks by themselves. Now the main auxiliary for all the vocals, I have a denoiser. Here's a cool little trick for you. Instead of a de-esser, sometimes you can add a denoiser and it creates a similar effect as de-essing. So for whatever reason, I'm not sure why I chose to do it right here, but that's why I did it. Maybe there was a lot of noise in the room as well when I was recording these. But sometimes you can add the denoiser way, add a de-esser, and it creates that de-essing vibe too. So that's just another pro tip for you. So I started with that. Now, anytime I'm doing dynamic compressing, like parallel compression, I should say, I typically go with a multi-band compressor. So this is the C4, and that's the first thing I have here after the denoiser. So I more or less have this. I have it taken down maybe like 3 to 6 dB of compression here. I wanted to create somewhat of a parallel compression effect here. Super simple. Then I added, I actually did some drastic EQing. I completely cut out all the lows here with the API, and I added a little bit of brightness. Interesting. I muted the doubler and I add the ozone stereo imager instead, and at the end I had a de-esser. Yo, you have no idea how proud I am to come up with this line right here. Broke off your back. So when I was making this, it felt super empty, this hook, without it. So I'll let you hear it without it. It still sound alright, you know, but it just did need a little bit of thing to drive the song. So I was just brainstorming and I came up with this idea to record this, you know what I'm saying? Of course, I have Autotune. I did a little telephone effect with this right here. Valhalla reverb, the vintage verb directly on this track, because I wanted the reverb to be a specific effect. Most of the times I bust out the reverb to save CPU and to have some uniformity in the mix. But in this case, I wanted it for a specific reason. And that reason is to add some color, some creative color to it. And I have a filter that I am automating. So this is fun. You know what I'm saying? So I have this filter being automated right here. So as the song progresses, it gets brighter and brighter. Now I think that's the entire vocals here. I don't think that there's anything much that I need to go over. Oh, important thing here, right? Very important. If you have multiple vocals in a session, which more than likely you will, you want to put the Autotune, and you're using Autotune, you want to put Autotune on each track individually. Because Autotune doesn't work well when multiple tracks is being bussed to it. So just keep that in mind. So if you look, every single one of these tracks have Autotune added individually. Now I know that Autotune can add a lot of latency, so make sure this is one of the last steps that you do in your, well, not necessarily, make sure that you're finished with all your recording before you do this, because Autotune is gonna add a lot of latency and it's gonna take a lot of CPU, so keep that in mind. But apart from that, man, that's pretty much everything. That's the whole vocals right there. Now let's dive into the beats. Let's dive into the rhythm. So I had my friend Alex Coombs record these guitars. Let's see what he did on guitars here. Fire, fire. Yo, you just can't miss with Alex Coombs. He's one of the best guitar players out there. Easily, hands down. So I had added a preset from Guitar Rig here. You can feel free to mess with it. I rolled off some low here with this filter. And I have an automation right here for the hooks. So in the hooks, let's see, where is it? See that? Because I wanted the hook to build. I wanted the hook to really build in a really powerful way. So I automated that. And I had a little EQ here. I took some mid from this guitar because I didn't want it to interrupt with the vocals. That's the other thing. If you have like a phrase that keeps repeating in the beat, you want to make sure that wherever the frequency range is for your vocals, the rhythm section is not interfering with it. So I know that my vocal range is somewhere within the 400 to 800 hertz. That's more or less where I am performing the song. So I kind of cut the guitar at that range so it doesn't interfere. The guitar doesn't clash with the vocals. And I think I did a really good job of that, if you don't mind me saying. I added a little doubler there, and I added some width to the stereo for the guitar. And at the end, I just kind of tamed it out with a little bit of compression. Man, my CPU, I think it's a screen recording that I'm doing. It's making my CPU really struggle right now. So I have a similar setup here on this other vocal track. This other guitar track. Right, just Guitar Rig. And I wanted to cut the lows. The reason why I cut the lows on a lot of these instruments is because I want the bass to dominate anything below like 60 hertz. I want that should be the bass domain, so I don't want the guitar to interfere with that either. And I just added, I think I might have, took away some width from this right here. All right, now what's this? This is a little synth I use. I forgot what plugin I use, but I didn't add any effects on that. It kind of sat perfectly in the mix to me. Perfect, perfect. So this is the bass, right? Keep the bass simple. I have this effect called log drums. Add a little distortion and saturation. R bass. Almost every song I have, I add R bass to the bass to make it really pop a little bit. So simple enough. All right, what else do I have here? I have another log drum that I did. Fire. I actually didn't add any effects to that. It kind of sat perfectly. Drums, I just added the kick, I should say. Added a little bit of transient in the high frequency of the EQ, a little bit of punch in the bass here in the 200 range, the 200 hertz range. And I have a compressor just to kill the peaks a little bit. Just to kill the peaks. Just to detect the volume. I don't want the kick to dominate the whole beat, and that's something I usually struggle with because I'm not naturally a mixing engineer. So I just know that I always want the drums to knock really hard. So I always OD the kick on the snare. So that's something I'm working on myself, people. I'm a growing progress. Snare, just took out some low and I added some width to the snare here.
Your confidence showing.
And the shaker. Ooh, cool shit I do with the shaker, right? I added a sidechain compression, right? And I tied it to the rim. So anytime the rim make a ka, it duct the volume of the shakers here. So check it out. You see it? So it almost looks like the shaker stopped every time you do the snare. So that adds some syncopation to the rhythm that I think is really cool and subtle. Let's hear it without it. Hear it without it. That's without it, and this is with it. So anytime that snare gets triggered, it ducks the volume for the shaker, and that just super cool to me. Okay.
We going, you know that you're safe with me. Got a big man in love with.
Alright, so there's that, and I did a different drum progression for the intros and the hooks. So this is what I have here. Breakdown, I have some delay. Valhalla delay, I use this a lot in this song actually. I use a lot of Valhalla stuff. I thought that was cool. And what is a little loop here. That's kind of made it a little bit wider. And let me take off that. Whoops.
Got a big man in love with everything that you're doing.
Let's hear it one more time. Nothing here.
True feeling, it a show. Put a ring on it, make it glow.
So that's pretty much the lion's share of everything, right? Now the auxes, I have two separate reverbs, well, three main reverbs going on in this song. So I have a Mani reverb here. It's kind of like a guitar amp reverb. I personally like how it sounds on vocals, so I keep it. And I have the Valhalla reverb here, the vintage verb. More than likely, that's just the default setting. And I have the Valhalla plate reverb as well. I have just the regular delay from Ableton. And personally, I don't like when the delay is just on the same frequency as the main vocal. I like to cut the lows from the delay. And in this case, I cut the highs as well. And something I learned recently too, the delays, I like to make the delays wider on the stereo field. That way, again, the delay is something separate than the main thing. So let's hear.
You're confidential, cause you know where we going. And you know that you're safe with me.
So this is just the delay track soloed here. So the delay is wider and the vocals are a little bit more centered. So all of that add to make the mix sound a little bit full. So just a cool little trick. That's more or less what it is, guys. That's how I mix the song Safe With Me. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from this mix, and the purpose of this video is just to show us as artists that we can mix our own music too. And I'm gonna try my best to show you how to mix your own music as you progress in your artist career. In this video, you should have seen all my templates and my vocal chain, and try your best. You can use the exact template that I use, or you can try your own, do your own experimentation. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave any in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to address any questions that you have with regards to the mixes or whatever. So that's the end of this video. Until next time, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Please, please, please let me know if this is the type of stuff you want to see. Give me some feedback here, and I'll see you next time.